Reciprocity, citizen.
Well, hello and welcome. Today we're talking Indiana Jones, mainly because that's what for like 25 years my family watched on July 4th, and I wanted to talk about it because I just saw the movie. I was at Hollywood Studios. I watched the show the other day because I wanted to take some of the taste of the movie out of my mouth. And I don't know. There's something about Indiana Jones that makes him different than some of the other heroes that we grew up with. And I think it's more so about the fact that he was sort of a a duality to his character. He's kind of like Batman in some ways, where you had the professor and you had, Indiana Jones, not Professor Jones or Dr. Jones. So we have Theme Park Casual and No Green Rocks, the founder of the Legion of Gamers, to talk some indie with us today and like reminisce about the good times and also, talk about the bad times, swinging monkeys and everything like that. We're going to talk
Yeah,
theme
I'll
park.
try not to take that personally.
I'm sorry. We'll talk theme parks with the stunt show and the amazing Indiana Jones attraction over in California. And then we'll talk some games if we want to. And also just like general thoughts about Indiana Jones in general. When was your first introduction to Indiana Jones Theme Park Casual?
I saw Raiders in the movie theater when it came out. So yeah, I'm that old, but yeah, I remember seeing it, and it was one of those movies that blew your mind. It was just like, oh my God. I mean, we were playing, we were Indiana Jones all over the playground and front yards and anything and everything. So
that's awesome. No Green, what about you? When was your first Indiana Jones experience?
Well, unfortunately, I'm too young to have been able to make it to the premieres, but I saw it from a Blockbuster video, if I'm not mistaken. My pops took me to Blockbuster, and we spent about 45 minutes trying to pick out a video. We ended up picking out Indiana Jones. We got all of them, and we blew through all of them. I actually did want to ask you, Tom, why is it that it's Indiana Jones and not like Independence Day or something like that for the 4th of July?
Well, first of all, Independence Day didn't exist until like 96 or whatever. So we had the Indiana Jones. My dad always liked them because they were Americana, but they weren't overly patriotic. Like it was about the morals of and also it's the occult. It's just something about the adventure, the pulpy nature of it, and the character himself just being this good guy that you can't tell is a good guy because he's dressing like a bad guy.
Okay.
And it's like it was a modern Western in some ways too, because like Indy dressed up like a cowboy. But
so it was the hat that got you.
It wasn't me. You gotta blame my dad. I mean, we watched that and Yankee Doodle Dandy. Like it was like two different sides of the coin there. So Yankee Doodle Dandy is another great 4th of July film. James Cagney being Again, I may not be old, but all the stuff I watch is. But yeah, I don't know. It's just
that's because you have class, Tom. You've got class.
No, I was raised on musicals. I won't be ashamed to admit that. But it was also,
all he needs is a monocle right now, and you'll be good.
What'd you say?
All you need is a monocle right now, and you'll be good.
I don't have a monocle, and I don't want to look like the Penguin, so no. But I think Indiana Jones kind of shows you something in terms of respect, because at that point in time, it was something about education, or like it wanted you to learn. It was something where you actually, because I looked up the stuff. Like I looked up Coronado's Cross. I looked up the stuff that I saw in there. Now, my actual first interaction with Indiana Jones was the Diet Coke commercial. Remember? Mm-hmm. So before I ever got to watch the movie, they had the commercial in front of the VHS. Because you used to get the trailers with the VHS and they would be in the front and you'd watch it. So I didn't even get to see the movie. I saw the commercial before the movie. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And I'm like, wait a minute. Where's it from? Like, I was like, where's it from though? Like, I don't know. Because like, I used to love the little commercials they put in front of VHSs. I miss those. It was fun. But so we'll start off basically. This is George Lucas and Steven Spielberg's creation. It's started in the mix of, I think, right after Empire or a little bit before. 81 was the first film, I believe.
Yes.
And So you had Harrison Ford, and this is basically what I considered Harrison Ford's moving him up to a movie star caliber, because I don't think Han Solo was just enough. I think he needed a property to himself. And that first scene in Raiders, like that first image of him coming up from the, like they have copied that so many times. Even in Infinity War, Cap's entrance is copying that silhouette walkout. It's just so iconic. So my question is this, and this is basically on any of the films, which has the best opening scene in your opinion? Like the first, before the credit crawl, like before the title, which is the best opening scene?
For me, easily it's Raiders. I think Raiders may have the best opening introduction of a character of any movie ever. It is pitch perfect, because in those, few minutes from, the opening, of the Paramount Mountain transforming, fading into the actual mountain until until the plane flies off into the clouds. At that point, from there, everything you need to know about Indiana Jones. They can do anything else throughout the movie. You already know so much about the character that you're set for the rest of the movie. They don't have to really introduce any other of his character traits or anything. You kind of already understand what he's about and what he's doing. And it's so wonderful. It is absolutely perfect.
Missed with movies now is the fact that within about 5 to 8 minutes, you have an entire character flushed out, and you don't have to.
And without anything, no expository stuff. It was all visual.
Yeah,
there's like almost no dialogue in those scenes practically.
What about
so
you?
They treated the viewer like they were actually intelligent human beings.
Correct.
Well, I mean, it was the less is more. It's following from Hitchcock. It's the less is more approach is always the better approach.
It's the show don't tell.
Yeah. What about you, No Green? What's your favorite Indy opening?
I don't know, man. Like, it's kind of hard because I watch those movies over and over and over again, but like every single one got me interested in what I was watching. So like the favorite opening, that's a difficult thing for me. Maybe Raiders.
Right, so
honestly,
got two Raiders.
Probably because it was like the first.
All right, but before I say mine, I'm going to say hi to Gary Bandwidth, who is kind of bringing the point of Dr. Jones, Dr. Jones, Dr. Jones, Dr. Moans. Honestly, I'm pretty sure if you look up Dr. Moans, it does not bring up an Indiana Jones film, and I would not do that.
Don't Google that one.
Don't, Gary. You brought that into the ether. Don't do it.
I mean, if you're going to do that, put safe search on.
Incognito mode is needed. And then we have Rachel Castro. Hello.
Hey, Rachel.
Theme park casual fan. Okay. So my actual favorite is probably the only one I love, and this is just me. I love actually Temple's opening just because it's so different. Especially since it's the second film and you have this idea of what like Indiana Jones is. You have this idea. And then you see him being like Bond for a minute. Like you get to see him in a completely different environment. I love the fact that it's Club Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
yeah. There's so many like little things in that. It's hilarious that you see Kathleen Kennedy in this as a go-go dancer, like doing a Rockettes number. It was just such a different opening that I was like, oh wow. Like Raiders is perfect. I mean, I can actually say Raiders of the Lost Ark is a perfect film. There's not many perfect films, but that is definitely one of them in terms of like cinematography, sound design, like everything about that movie is perfect.
Well, they used a lot of practical and miniatures for that. So like things felt a lot more real. The danger felt a lot more real to me.
They used a lot of full size stuff too. Everything is This
The
is
boulder is real.
Yeah, the boulder is real.
Wait, you telling me Harrison Ford was running from a giant boulder at some
with
point?
staples in his head, holding his hat on.
Yeah.
Oh, you could not pay
And
me
that
enough
the
to
little
do that.
stumble that you see, that was real. He really did stumble and have to get the heck up and get out of the way of that boulder, because the boulder was, I think, like 600 pounds, even though
Yeah.
it was like, basically hollow or whatever, but it still had weight, and he had to get out of the way.
Well, even the one in the stunt show is about 200 pounds. Like the one they use at the stunt show now. It's not light, even though it's like easy to push up. It's still gonna hurt you. There are just so many. Like, also talk about the introduction of a villain in an awesome way. Belloc, like
Oh yeah.
he's the standout villain of all of the Indiana Jones films. I don't care. He is the standout because it's the only time you see Indiana Jones like antithesis. You see his like you see the mirror of what Indy could have been, and that's the only time you see that. The rest of the villains are much more grandiose, much more like larger than life. And I mean, you still have for YouTube, I'm gonna say the Yahtzees as a villain in Raiders, but Belloc is just he's the brain. He is the actual villain, and he's also like a traitor to his like.
Yeah, I like that you put that he's like the anti-Indy.
Yeah, and I just there's something about him that like he always seemed cool too. Like he was like he was kind of in some ways like a Bond villain. Like he was just like he was always cool. He was bringing Mary in the drink. Here's the dress. Like he was always kind of like I would say the smartest man in the room for the bad guys. He definitely was.
Right.
And we're gonna stay with Raiders for a little bit because Raiders also introduced the best secondary character ever in Sala. I am sorry, like I had a Sala action figure. Sala was my dude because he was just so like a breath of fresh air watching the film. He just comes up, starts singing, got his whole family around him, and that was something that like I missed in Temple of Doom, obviously, but seeing him back. And I'm going to say this even for the new movie. I don't care. Hearing Sala sing, I am the token of the sea again. I don't care if it's member berries. It still was like, oh, awesome. I don't care. If either of you have bad things to say about Sala, I'll be very upset. That's all I'm going to say. Also, I did meet him a couple of times in real life. So it's kind of like an.
Yeah, no, Sala, like you said, he's a perfect character. He plays it with such. He's got a gusto about him, but he plays it so subdued. He doesn't go over the top with it. Yeah, like you said, everything about Raiders is so perfect. The casting and everything. I don't know how you would be able to recreate that. It's like it was one of those lightning in a bottle moments. But yeah, Sala, everybody loves Sala.
Yeah, and
and like you said, he's really a secondary character, but you ended up loving him.
I just and the fact that you don't know what he is doing, but he's just like my viewpoint. He must have been like an underworld boss or whatever because he just somehow had his hands in everything.
Right.
And in my head canon, he must have met Sala at some point when he was in Africa in Young Indiana Jones, and they must have said like behind the scenes said something to each other, and like I just filled up this whole backstory. And like they should have had an episode of Young Indy with him and Sala together. I'm just saying. But and then like Marion,
that's a missed opportunity. I think in Young Indy they could have expanded a lot more on the backstories of the side characters that were in the movies, so you can kind of get the relationships.
Yes, Sala could have definitely been expanded on. Same with Brody. I feel like Marcus wasn't expanded on enough, but like those are missteps of one, maybe not finding right casting and stuff like that. And but like besides Sala, like the introduction of Sala is awesome, but the introduction of Marion, like talk about creating an awesome badass female character in like 3 phrases or 3 scenes or 1 scene, and nothing felt forced. Like it's good writing. Oh my god.
Yep.
And exactly, less is more. Like Theme Park Casual said before, less is more. But I would never want to try and drink with her. Like I won't. No Green's
Yeah,
like,
and that's and as the movie continues, obviously, you know, with Marion, they made her a badass, but they didn't strip her of her femininity.
Yeah.
You know, she still got to be a woman who was a badass. You know, it wasn't a woman trying to be a man as a badass. You know, it was they let her be a woman who could hold her own.
And they let you see that with this, like the symbolism of her putting the dress on. You got to see like the switch kind of like, all right, I'm a badass. All right, I am a little bit of a damsel though. Like I still need help. I can't do it on my own. And that like her outfits during the movie and her like emotionality during the movie helped portray that so well. Like the monkey and going through the streets of Morocco. That was a great scene. Like that, the Morocco scene in general and how it builds on top of each other. And the fact that he's, you know, the behind the scenes stuff, him being sick, there's supposed to be a whole huge whip sword fight. And he's
right.
like, Indy would just do this. Like,
oh yeah, that was really cool. Like, yeah, you saw it and you were like, wow, that was awesome. And then you hear the backstory and you just find that the funniest thing in the world. Because I mean, what would you do if you had to go to the bathroom? And like, do you think the director could have been like, no, we're going to keep it the other way, the way we wanted it, but like they kept that, and that was so smart.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, think about it. It's right after A New Hope and everything like that. You have Harrison Ford shooting first with Greedo, and then it makes sense. Like, yeah, it's just the same character. And like, it's not the same character, but like, as a Star Wars fan and an Indy fan, you're like, oh yeah, he would do that. Indiana Jones would do that. It's a Han Solo movie. It would do that. But we always, I have to say this though. I've watched this movie once muted.
Why did you watch it muted?
I was watching subtitles, sleeping baby. My nephew was sleeping, and I was watching the movie. And I didn't want to wake him. The music, John Williams is basically the second lead star of these films. Like, if you think about it, really, it's Harrison Ford and then John Williams music. Those are the two leads of probably any George Lucas project. Is just like whoever the lead is and John Williams music. But man, that indie fanfare, like, it is so good at pumping you up. Like, it's just, and even like the Marion, like little slower undertones. It's just, I'm sorry. I love the Indiana Jones series, and Raiders is, of course, if anyone thinks that Raiders isn't a perfect film, question their entire existence.
Oh yeah.
Just right now. Just like question it and leave it alone. And then this also set up all the tentpoles for every Indiana Jones film to follow, which includes, I was scared as a kid of this film because of one reason. Every Indiana Jones film was fine until the end. And of course, at the end, you got the face melting or the
right.
Like, basically, you were fine. Like, you could get through 99% of an Indiana Jones film. But you knew when to go, like, okay, I'm not watching.
Yeah.
Like, you knew that was coming. And they warned you. Like, I love the fact that even in the movie, like, close your eyes. Just close your eyes, Marion. Like, it was just like a warning. And like, I'm like, you know what? Indy's saying to close my eyes. I'm just doing it. That's what I was. As a kid, I just closed my eyes. Like, he warned. And so until I was about 10, I didn't know what happened in that scene.
Yeah, I was the same way. It's like I didn't know that Belloc had how his demise came about for, you know, probably maybe 10 or 12 viewings of it, and then finally it was like, all right, I'm gonna watch.
And also, like, practical effects, like, they're candles. They're just candles. Like, the fact that it's, and it looks so good.
Oh yeah.
All right, so also, it's kind of funny that they keep the fact that Indy just never learns German. Like,
never thought about that.
Every film, like, he is not. And here's the funny thing: like, in Young Indiana Jones,
can he read it? That was the question.
I don't know, but in Young Indiana Jones, he like learns 12 languages. Never tries German, and it's even in the Dial of Destiny, he still doesn't know German. Like, come on, at some point, you would think, you know what, I'm gonna learn German.
Well, even in Last Crusade, he punches the guy out of the dirigible and then says, "No ticket." Instead of speaking German.
He didn't try at all. Like, you're going against bad guys who happen to speak German. You never think, oh, but you'll learn ancient Greek.
Right.
I don't know. I just think that was a continuity thing that's hilarious just to make tension.
Yeah, that's funny because I never even thought about that. And now that you mention it, it's like, oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yes, he spoke the local language in Temple of Doom, but he did not speak German. I'm just saying, for going up against and you try to hide yourself in them multiple times, I feel like it was just a thing to not have to have tension moments. Like, oh yeah, he's gonna know Spanish, Greek, Argentinian, but Mandarin.
Well, I mean, it would make sense he knows the older languages because he has to read a lot of the texts in those languages.
Oh, well, that's more from his father making him learn them. Like you get that from the beginning scene of Last Crusade because
so blame his father, not him.
Right.
Still, I mean, I'm gonna be nitpicky here a little bit. Like in Crystal Skull, they say he is a spy in World War II. Like, okay, you're a spy, which means you're going in, and even in Young Indiana Jones, he was a spy. Going into those things, never. He learns Russian. He learns Italian. He learns French, Belgian, Arabic. Never German. I'm sorry. It's a little bit of a nitpick, but it's a big one that, after Raiders, you'd be like, well, I just spent this entire time. If I knew German, I probably would have been able to just blend in.
Right.
We got Joe C8 Team Pureblood coming in, giving some thumbs up, and I don't know the other emoji. Thumbs up, spaces, and thumbs up. I guess squares.
No,
they're
thumbs
US
up.
flags.
Thumbs up. Basically, with thumbs up.
Okay.
I think I could be wrong.
So we'll move up to Temple of Doom, which I think it actually is one of Jay's more liked ones. I like it. I'm gonna say from the beginning, Indiana Jones is best when dealing with religious artifacts that have to do more with Judeo-Christian stuff. That's Shankara stones, just like people don't know what it is, so I feel like there's less connection to it, and it seems less real. Where when you say, "Oh, you're going after the Ark or the Holy Grail or whatever it is," there's more zeitgeist to it and build up. But I do think that it has one of the cooler opening things with the raft, the plane. It just felt more actiony, a little bit than the Raiders one even.
Yeah, for me, Temple of Doom always felt more like a comic book come to life. If you were writing an Indiana Jones comic book, that's how it would look and feel to me. It was so much more. I don't want to say over
Cartoony?
The top, but it was. Yeah, it had a little bit of a corniness to it. But that opening scene, the only thing I don't like is how silly Indy seemed when he was looking for the antidote.
Yeah, that
was the only part that I was like, oh, I wish they would have toned that down a little bit and let Willie be the only one that was that silliness of trying to find the diamond.
So I have a theory behind that. Since that was the first film that introduced PG-13, I'm wondering if they toned him down a little bit to try to appease censors, because that was they were at the point where they were pushing an R in that film.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if there's some directorial choices by Spielberg to be all right, well, let's try and make sure that this has that little bit more campy tone at points.
Yeah, actually, Orange Grove 55, he was making that same point that they kind of pushed the comedy a little bit over, more than Raiders, to kind of balance out all how heavy and dark some of the parts were.
Yeah, because once you get past the beginning, this is definitely the darkest of any of the Indian films. It is the Empire in some ways of them, because you are dealing with. Look, I understand. Last Crusade has a very fun adventure feel to it. Raiders has a fun adventure feel. You are getting into this, and it is not there's not a fun tone after you get past the first intro scene. You're going to a village that's starving. that's losing water, that's lost their kids.
Right.
Like everything about that part is so depressing. Like I guess you did need some levity to it, and that's why Short Round I think makes sense more than like saying having Sala in this film as a, and it has a connection to later on with the kids being forced to do the labor. So there's a, I think everything was like purpose built choices, but I do know that why it's also Temple is one of the ones that's more divisive among indie fans. Like it's not my like favorite Indiana Jones film. And actually, there are parts of Crystal Skull that I like more than Temple of Doom. Like you take the first third of Crystal Skull, but minus the fridge scene, you get some decent Indiana Jones stuff, like the whole library chase and all that through the university. That feels like Indiana Jones. This felt like you had really lighter moments and then really darker moments, and I feel like they didn't strike that balance well.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for me, Temple of Doom, I think when they departed from or too far from physics is when I start checking out. It's in Raiders, everything that happened, even though it was fantastical, it felt grounded in reality. It's like, I suppose that could happen. He got real lucky on that one, but the raft out of the plane, that's that's not going to happen. The water filling those entire caverns and then still bursting. That's not going to happen.
Physics don't work that way.
Yeah, so that's where, for me, it's like it takes me out of the movie, and I don't like that. Like I said, Raiders, even though there's the supernatural, there's the, by the seat of his pants kind of stuff happening, it felt like it was grounded in reality. Like even when they, the Well of Souls, when they escape out of there, him being able to get the big statue to crumble over into there, and then, oh, look, there's some light, it's like, all right.
Apparently, Joe sees being censored from telling us about the Applebee's commercial giving away free Indy tickets. I've seen that. I think they talked about it on FNT that Applebee's was giving away tickets. I've seen that, Joe. But thank you for the $5. And I will say though, there is one scene in Temple of Doom that kind of is one of the things that I do like, and it was like the most I think badass Indy looked was this. I just think that scene, you didn't get that scene in like that's closer to like the intro scene in Raiders, but like the physics things definitely came in with the comedy there because like he was punching people and they were going flying.
Right.
That was not happening in Raiders. Like, and now I know it's because he drank the blood or whatever. Rogue, calm down. Sorry, my dog's a little agitated, but I agree with you. It's the most tonally inconsistent, and it's the least indie feeling. Like it felt like you said, the comic book version of Indiana Jones. Not
there were certain little moments that were really, really well done, like the spike room
or
that scene. Yeah, those were fantastic. Those were quintessential indie scenes.
And if we just had the raft scene, but not it falling out of the plane, I think that would have been cool. Just the raft segment or whatever, not the falling from the plane, sliding down the snow into the water. You could have made something work a little bit more. Like they landed the plane, but they had nowhere else to go, so they threw the raft into the thing and then slid down. Like if they could have at least worked it that way. But I do think the monkey brain scene is kind of funny. Like that food scene was
that's just straight gross out stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, you kind of like I don't mind that. Like that scene, and it worked with Willie's character because she was probably my least liked indie gal. Like she was just constant like I couldn't. I mean, I know she was dating Steven at the time, Spielberg, or married or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. I can't remember if they were married during the time of the filming or if they got married after.
So I think that was definitely we can move past Temple of Doom because let's be honest, I think it's a good it's definitely one of the top 3 indie films. Like it's definitely one of the top 3. But let's be honest. If all the movies were out when I grew up, so like all of them were out, and you have Last Crusade, and Last Crusade is like I don't know how you have a better ending to a trilogy.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I was just thinking that, dude. Riding off into the sunset, like.
And I mean, the beginning with River Phoenix playing young Indy, like awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then showing later on, showing how he got the hat, everything like that, like
Yeah.
that whole thing, and figuring out why he doesn't like snakes. You finally get to know why, like informing on things. And remember, these movies came out a long distance apart.
Yeah, there was 8 years in between.
Yeah, so informing on stuff from Raiders, and in the thing, like it's just like with such great filmmaking. And then of course you get to see the father finally. You get to see his father. And having Sean Connery and Harrison Ford in a movie together. All right, I want to get Josie's comment quickly before. This may sound corny, but my favorite line in Temple Doom is when the village chief asked Indy, "Now do you understand the power of the rock?" He says, "Yes, now I understand its power." I agree with that. But I also think that since it's a prequel to Raiders, it works. Like if you didn't know it was a prequel, you'd be like, well, he saw the Ark. And he saw what the Ark did. He should understand the power of relics and everything like that. Like, so the fact that this is a prequel, that answer and everything informs more, and it also explains some of his attitude.
A friend of mine, Jay Scher, he is on with the Orange Grove 55 guys, and he's been dissecting Indy for some time now, leading up to the movie. But his take on it is part of why Crystal Skull doesn't work. Is in the first 3 movies, Indy goes from being a skeptic to a believer.
Yeah.
In
each of the movies, and you get to see that progression of how he has to change his thinking and have to trust that supernatural, trust the power of these relics, and it's really neat to see. And he puts it that Indy has to end up choosing people over things.
Yeah,
and that's how you see the character grow and move through the movies. And that's why, even though Temple of Doom feels a little different, it follows that same character arc. So it feels still like Indy.
And it's the only one actually where the relics stay where they belong.
Right.
It's the only one that like you get things back to the way they should be. Like, you think about Raiders and the Ark is somewhere in a military facility. And you take Last Crusade, and the Grail falls to be found again, possibly.
Right. But even that, if we go with Jay's take of going from the choosing people over the items in Last Crusade, Henry Sr., what does he tell Indy?
Let it go.
Let it go. And so it's a when you look at it from that perspective, it's a really nice mirroring, and you see that they both have that same mentality and same heart toward the archaeology and the items that they're searching for. That when it comes down to it, it's the people in my life matter more than them when it comes down to it.
And that's what you get with the father too, because you have the entire. If you take out the Young Indiana Jones adventures, if you just take the movie, you have the father being obsessed to the point about the Grail, right? He has a Grail diary. He's
right.
His entire life, not Indy's entire life, but his entire life. And he sees the power for the Grail and everything like that. And he sees his son as more important for the first time, or at least the audience sees it that way.
Right.
And it's a very powerful scene. It's a great father-son film. Like like in terms of showing like a real father-son relationship for most of the time, which is approval both directions, and respect, and how it's earned, and how fathers and sons show love for each other. It's one of the best like chemistry.
The way it shows how they both grew to understand each other by the end of it. It was. I think I was telling my son, I was like, it's fantastic the way Indy, has this, animosity towards his father about this relic. And when it comes down to it, Sean Connery, okay, what do you want to talk about? Yeah. And Indy's like, I don't know.
And the line from Henry Jones Sr., you left when you just got interesting. Like
exactly. Yeah.
That's such a point about fathers and sons in terms of like you hit 18 or whatever it is, you go off to college, you come back, and then you're interesting. Like, because you can talk to them as adults. Like, you can actually have real conversations with it's I will say, like, if you have a troubled relationship with your father and your son, I would watch this movie and just follow it and just do what they do. It's good therapy. And you get Sala back, you get Marcus, and you get Henry Sr. You got probably the most attractive Indy girl, in my opinion, Dr. Elsha Snyder or whatever her name is. Like, I felt bad that she was a bad guy. Like, I didn't want that to happen.
Yeah. That was a good twist, though.
Yeah, and the boat scene. I can't believe they destroyed one of them. Those are expensive boats, man. They're like $100,000. I'm just like, it wasn't a fake either. They didn't build one. I'm sorry. I was watching that as like, I've been watching it. I'm like, wait. And I always thought it was a model. And they're like, no, it's a full-size boat. Like, those are expensive. And it was $100,000 back then. I don't want to know what it is now. Sorry. I'm a boat person. Why I live on water. But like this, I think you could toss up between Raiders and the Last Crusade about being perfect. Yeah. I think Raiders wins just because it's first. But you could toss up between these two movies and you would never be able to like counterpoint off of
you could go back and forth, and anybody who says Raiders is better or Last Crusade is better, they're right.
Yeah, it's a pointless argument. I was gonna see. I think the tank scene is probably the highest pinnacle of this whole film for me for one reason. I thought I lost you, boy. That scene.
Oh no, the tank scene for me was just because it was live. It was like that was a real stunt that was being done, and people almost freaking died on that.
I mean, Harrison got his back torn up on the tank tread. Like, that was not. And I think Marcus Brody's character fainted twice while filming because it was like 110 degrees inside the tank. Like, because they were in
tanks
Tunisia.
Can get very, very hot if you don't have some form of air conditioning. You're in trouble.
And but I guess my point is this had the most like drama in terms of interpersonal compared to say Raiders with Marion and him. I think the interpersonal drama between Indy and Henry Sr. is just so palpable, and that scene, even though you get it for like 2 seconds or 3 seconds, that scene on seeing Sean Connery's face there, like the amount of sadness in that few seconds was like, wow, okay. Like, that was great acting, great directing, and just Harrison's look when he gets up, like completely disheveled in shock and looking over to see what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't understand at all. So you have such sadness and then such levity in like a second.
Right, exactly. And then he's all, we got to get going. And they drop Indy, he sits, and then what happens? The hat blows right in front of him. It's like it's like, okay, that's one of those things where it's like the physics, that's really not going to happen. But it feels grounded in reality to where you go, of course that would happen for Indy.
And it's showing, and I hate when people say fan service is a bad thing. These movies, the reason they work is because it is great fan service. Like, that's the thing. You want the character to win. You feel for the character. You see what they're doing, and there are little things that happen, like that just work. And then the hat blowing in just works. Yep. And then like you get to see him be smart. Like, and that's the other thing. That's the duality. You get to see the fact that he is very intelligent. Like, he's not just a grave robber. Seeing him do the puzzles. You didn't really get that much in Raiders. In Temple, it's more physical, but seeing him go through and do, like, using his father's journal and going through and doing the actual... Like,
but you did see that in Raiders because there's the whole...
the beginning scene is more physical stuff, like not hitting the light and stuff like that. I'm saying, like...
Right, but he's like, hold on. He's sensing the trap, And so it's like he's outwitting the people who set those traps. So you do kind of get a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's like you get like a Batman moment inside of the thing, and that's something.
But again, it's like when you get to Last Crusade, it's like, oh, he's got more that he's got to deal with, and and I love that he steps on the J and starts with an I.
And
it's like it's so perfect that he's under the stress, he just goes with J. And the way they do that is it's so real. It makes the character, it completely rounds out a full character.
And let's all like the invisible bridge scene, and like when I was young watching that, I'm like, how are they doing this? Like just like how, because it was practical set, and they like painted everything perfect, and they lowered, like the floor wasn't that much lower. There was a difference in floor height, but it's just like, and then you throw the sand on top, and it's like, you could take sections of these movies and just like, I could watch scenes forever. Like I could watch scenes of these movies forever. That's something you can't do nowadays. Like it's very hard to like. I can't count how many times I've watched Indiana Jones. Any of them.
Yeah, I have no idea. And like you said, each scene could be its own master class in how to set up a scene.
Yeah, it's completely like bonkers how much they basically wrote the book on making adventure films. Like I know there were pulpy adventure and campy adventure films in the 50s and 60s and like 30s, Errol Flynn, stuff like that, but and no one's done it since. No one's like improved upon it.
Yeah, and anything that has been good, it's got the Indy template kind of buried somewhere in there.
Like National Treasure.
Look at National Treasure, you look at The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. It's like those are all thanks to Indy.
Yeah. Now we're going to talk.
I didn't even think about that.
We're going to talk about the Black Sheep for a little bit, and I'm gonna say this in all honesty. I don't think Kingdom of Crystal Skull is like two scenes that make it bad. Two real scenes that make it bad. Now,
I'd say there's a few. There's a few more things that
they're all right. There are a few things, but at least at the time going into the theater to watch it, like the trailer was good. Like you got a good trailer. Did I like the casting of Shia LaBeouf? No. But at that time, Indy still seemed capable. It didn't seem like he was only in his 60s.
Right.
It wasn't like too far off. I loved seeing the Ark again. Like the fact that you actually went to the area housing the Ark. That was cool. Everything after that was a little weird. Like, I think the villain was a bad part of that film, Cate Blanchett, like her whole thing. And I don't think introducing new characters in Indiana Jones is a hard thing to do because sorry.
Full disclosure, I've only seen that once. Not like the original trilogy. I was definitely not interested in that.
I saw it twice, I think. I watched it once in theaters and I watched it once afterwards because one, I do like the university scene and I like the end. I like the end of him marrying Marion and him
and then Shy picking up the hat or whatever.
And he said no.
Yeah.
Like
yoink.
that scene, if the movie was better, that scene would have been just as palpable and such as important as riding off the sunset together. Because you have his love of his life, them getting together, and that would have been like a great ending if they had better things.
Yeah.
Fans keep calling Ancient Ones from Crystal aliens. Williams Hurt's character stated they're not from outer space; they're from interspace. They were interdimensional beings. Okay.
Well, I mean, technically, alien doesn't
means not terrestrial. Interdimension is not terrestrial,
right?
In some ways, but I get what you're saying there. I actually didn't mind William Hurt's character, but it was also that once you get to the jungle in that movie is where things go like, well, we're just going to help everyone and we're just going to go along with the flow. And that's not how Indiana Jones movies work. Like Indy's supposed to somehow get away and then somehow save everyone. And that's kind of how it works. Like Raiders. Okay. Yeah. He saved everyone, but like he was alone. He wasn't with all of the Yahtzees in the like he got to go separate and be able to formulate stuff for a little bit to try and get the upper hand. So that's the one thing that like really irked me. He's like, all right, I'm gonna stare at this crystal skull and then follow and lead everyone along. I will say I like the ant scene. I did think the ant scene, even though it was CG, I thought that was the closest thing to like Indy-ish feeling in that film when the guy got eaten up by the ants.
Yeah, I would agree that that's an Indy type of scene.
But
the swinging on the vines, the swashbuckling on the jeeps.
No. Oh, I learned fencing. Like, nah. Like, that was so much trying to have his character have something that was his. Like, okay, he's going to be a fencer instead of using a whip.
Yeah.
Because why?
Yeah, I can't really go out and buy a, the rapier. I can go out and buy a whip.
Yeah. It would have been better, like if you wanted to have him be a greaser, he should have had like a wrench with him or something like that. He was working on his bike and he had a wrench, and like instead of using the whip, he had a wrench with him to do things. If you wanted to try and make some type of reason,
give him a butterfly knife that he's just like really good at and can knives. That's his thing.
Yeah, like, it would make sense in terms of the time frame and what you tried to make him be, but like, oh, he fences. What? Just he says that goes along the lines that of what U.S. Christians believe that the so-called aliens are really interdimensional beings or fallen angels. Okay, I did not know that. But I did not know that, Joe. I don't know. I don't mind the Joe Hedges skull thing being a relic to look for, but that shouldn't have been the main one. I think like the other problem is most indie films have two relics. The first one that is sort of like secondary, but starts the story for the second one, which is the one that matters. And that was a problem with the thing because they were just looking for the skull the whole time. There was no first relic that mattered.
Haven't the crystal skulls been like debunked multiple times, while the other ones have not really been debunked? Because you can't really.
Well, I thought they carbon dated them, so they didn't know how they could make them with the tools. Wasn't that the whole point of the skulls? Like they didn't know how they would be able to make them with the tools of the time based on carbon dating.
I mean, no, I don't think that's why they were debunked. I'm gonna check right now, but
I'm going off of what I think. I have not like thoroughly researched the real life counterparts for all Indiana Jones relics. I'm sorry. I researched the ones that had like relations to things like the Grail is the Grail, like the crystal skull thing was a crystal skull. You can't even call it something cool. Like, all right, put it this way, I didn't buy it at Disney Park. Like that was the one I'm like, I don't need that. I'm not $50 for a glowing alien skull that looks like it's from Aliens and looks like a xenomorph, and I would rather just have that then. But that was my point of earlier, that the original trilogy of it, which I hate that you have to say original trilogy now for Raider or for Indiana Jones. Like you have to now say that. Yeah. They had better flow and connections between their things and callbacks that way. And like I said, you had the two relics. You had the fertility idol, which isn't a religious relic in say of like Christianity or anything like that, but it's still like you have that, but it's only there for a little bit and he loses it, and that doesn't matter after that. Like, right. And technically you have three. You have the Staff of Ra piece and you have the Grail itself.
They found out it was carved by a rotary wheel.
Carved by a rotary wheel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
So they scanned it with electron microscopy. I'm probably not saying that right. And it turned out it was carved by a rotary wheel, which obviously wasn't invented.
Okay. So Crystal Skull, are there any scenes that you find redeeming in it, Theme Park Casual?
I think like you guys, I've only seen it a couple of times.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think back to anything that I might have liked in it, but it was, I just remember coming out of the theater just going, that was just not good.
Yeah.
You know what's a real bummer about these is that the fact it's very difficult to find something you like in these. I don't want to watch a movie and then have to specifically look for something I like, because I don't think anybody wants to, hate on Indiana Jones, but give us something to work with, guys. Come on.
I mean, the only thing that I would say that I actually thought was fun was the motorcycle chase in the college campus. Like, that was a fun scene. The music fit well. He wasn't made a fool of it all, and I did love the little thing of him answering like, "No, you have to go read this book instead," while on the motorcycle and stuff like that, riding away. Like, he was still in professor mode, even though he was being chased through the campus. So or he said like, "Remember to get out of the library," or whatever it is. Like, he just like that part felt cool, but the rest of it, yeah. Like, if you could have fixed things, it would have, at least that scene would have worked in a good Indiana Jones film.
So if you were to ask me what scene that I guess was redeemable, is maybe the scene where they're on the truck and they're swinging through the vines and everything. Like, I enjoyed that scene.
You picked that scene.
Well, I enjoyed it just because it was bonkers. And like, I enjoy it because I like CGI and all that stuff. Like, I like kind of like how things are made. So I actually like watch kind of behind the scenes stuff, like how it was made. So I enjoyed it because I know how it was made, not because it was a great part of the movie.
So Joe does bring up the actual 5 skulls don't show any chisel grinding, sanding, or other types of tool marks. There's still a mystery to this day. I did not research that one because it's my least liked film. Actually, I think Crystal's. All right. So, have either of you seen Dial of Destiny yet?
No, I have zero interest. I've watched a whole bunch of people reviews in the community that we know, and
do you care about spoilers at all?
I mean, maybe for the first 30 minutes of the film, and then after that, no.
All right. Well, the first 30 minutes, I will say this, is some of the my only issue with it is the voice, the face, the facial, whatever they did looked
the really, de-aging really stuff.
The deep fake or whatever.
The de-aging looked really, really good, and the difference was it wasn't a body double. They were doing point capture from Harrison's face for most of it.
I can't wait till the behind the scenes come out about how they do that. I really want to know the technicalities of that.
So that looked really good. I don't know why they didn't de-age his voice like they did for Mark Hamill and Mando, because they did de-aging for Mark Hamill's voice in Mando season 2 and 3. So I don't know why they didn't do that for Harrison, but his voice is bad. After that first 30 minutes, there's some very odd contrivances that happen. I'm going to tell you right now, you have to see Indiana Jones in his underwear. Like, that's
why.
That's a scene. He's like get off my lawn type of moment.
Oh, okay.
Oof.
Like, yeah, pretty much that. Here's my point about the reasons why Indy are the way he is. I don't find the same thing as the Han Solo thing, even though people are putting the comparisons of, oh, Han lost his son, Indy lost his son. They're both depressed. I kind of buy the reasoning for Indy being depressed when he talks about it in the film, and I respect that decision. But the thing I have a hard issue with is, compared to Crystal Skull, if you take out the annoying element, which is Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, and put a better actress in there and change some dialogue, the story they have written here is a great Indiana Jones movie. Mm-hmm. That's the problem I have, because it is a really good MacGuffin. It's something that makes sense. The Archimedes dial, the Archetheon, works well as a Indiana Jones relic. And that's my problem. And it also, there's a really cool scuba diving scene. There's a scene, bad timing, like completely bad timing of doing a deep sea dive, like such bad timing on their part. But it's actually a really cool scene where Indy has to like fight off eels. So he's basically fighting off a bunch of water snakes. Like, and first time we see that type of scene in an Indy film of like underwater salvaging, because it couldn't really be done. in the 30s and 40s. So that's kind of a cool thing. And I will say this, spoiling the end, he still has the hat. I'm going to say this right now. Phoebe Waller-Bridge does not take the hat. There's no after credit scenes of her taking the hat. The hat and whip are still with Indy. And the last lines of the film are basically asking Marion, "Are you back?" And him saying, "Yeah, I'm back." I don't know what that means. Like, this is supposed to be the last film. It's not doing well money-wise. But the fact that they put a scene where Marion says, "Are you back?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm back." Pretty much that's what he says. Confuses me to beyond belief, because this movie will not make enough money to warrant a sequel if their budgets.
I've been hearing it's doing really badly.
Now, I will say, compared to everyone else, my theater was full for it at 3:00 on Thursday. It was a full theater. Everyone was there, at least 50 or 60. Like, the old people came out to see this.
Is there a problem with that, Tom?
No, but they all dressed up too. I loved it. There were a bunch of couples going dressed up as Indy and Marion. Like, it was actually, look, I don't want to harp on something that like be negative, but like the only thing that took me out of the film was Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Like, if you had a better actress in there and some better dialogue and took out some of the modern cringe words, it would have been fine. Like, it would have been a passable film. You could have kept the character and just tweaked some things. I actually would have made it Salah's daughter, because Salah's in the film, and this is where like no one's complaining about this, but they made Salah a cab driver in New York. So you take the guy and you take the Moroccan guy and put him as like a stereotypical cab driver in New York City, and no one has a problem with that. Like, I'm just saying, like, inclusive, right? But Salah is still somehow Salah, and I don't know how he is. Salah still has like all the information in the world. He's like, well, Phoebe's been arrested. Helena's been arrested about 7 times, and it's like he has all this information somehow. I'm like, so he's a cab driver in the city, but he's still connected to like the Moroccan underworld. I don't. But seeing Salah back, and there are some awesome lines of dialogue if you're like an Indy fan that are like made you tear up a little bit. Like, Salah says, like, "Oh, I miss the sea, I miss the desert. Take me with you." And then he like just screams like out in the middle of traffic when Harrison's trying to hide because he's wanted for murder. He says, "Give him hell, Indiana Jones," and like everyone just looks at him like, and Harrison's face is like, "Really?" Like, it's just there's just some weird, funny moments, and I'm like, I don't know if this is supposed to be laughing at this, but it worked out okay. I think there was the only problem is it's like it was 15 years too late. If they did this closer to Crystal Skull and had a different actress in there who wasn't trying to make herself, she must have rewrote parts of the script where it's just like, everyone wants to sleep with me. That was like basically her character. Like, oh, this guy wants to sleep with me. Oh, this guy wants to sleep with me. I'm like, I'm sorry, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but you look like the thing from Goonies sometimes. I don't mean it in a bad way, but you're like 6'8" or whatever.
I don't mean that in a bad way.
But it's not like she's the most attractive female. And they just want to make her like the whole story. There's a whole section where this the son of a Moroccan mob boss is chasing after her because she won't marry him. Like, okay. So in terms of an Indiana Jones film, I think she's the worst secondary character ever written. But some people were saying this was the last Jedi for Indiana Jones. I don't think it's that bad because Harrison Ford the only thing Harrison Ford in it that does out of character a little bit is want to stay in the past. But that's because at that point in time, he feels emotionally broken because of the loss of his son that strained their marriage between him and Marion. I don't think that's as bad as The Last Jedi, where Luke is, tried to kill his nephew. And I just
becomes a hermit and gives up on all his.
Well, I mean, he's still teaching Harrison, and he's still teaching in this. He's still teaching archaeology. He's still doing what he loves. So I don't know if it's the same thing. So I don't think it is bad. In my viewpoint, it's not as bad as all the sequels Star Wars stuff. Like, you're not ruining.
Your review so far has been the only one that I trust, because you're not just bashing and you're not just simply praising, because it seems like everybody's on those two polarized spectrums with it.
It's a nuance. I'm nuanced about things, and I think that's the thing. There are parts I don't like, but there are parts I enjoyed watching. I chuckled, I teared up at times when he talks about his son and why he died. When he's on the boat and Shaw is like throws some line. Helena Shaw is Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character. When she throws some line, and she's like, "Oh, what would you do if you could travel back in time?" And she's like, I would go back and stop my son. And he's like, why? Because he didn't live up to you. And he's like, no, because he did it to despite me, and I just want to see my son again. Like there, and he teared, and like Harrison's all sad. I'm like, that if Helena Shaw's character actually delivered the line well, that scene would have played so much better. But since she just delivered it sarcastically with no thought or depth or anything like that, every time she spoke, it was always just like, it didn't make sense. It's like when Poe Dameron sometimes talked in the sequel trilogies, and he was talking like a Deadpool film instead of talking like a Star Wars movie. Like he was trying to be Han Solo-ish, but it didn't come off that way.
Was it one of those where she's trying to be the sassy, spunky girl, but it's like, okay, you don't need to do that every single time with every single thing, thing you say.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. That was the main problem I had, is that there was she was one note. Like Short Round had more depth than Helena Shaw. And the other problem I had is the villain. So the villain is Schmidt, who ends up being someone of Project Paperclip. Project Paperclip is a real life thing that happened where Americans recruited German scientists to work on the rocket program for NASA and stuff like that. So that's the villain, and somehow the villain wants to be even more Yahtzee than Yahtzees and go back and stop Hitler because he wasn't Yahtzee enough. That's the general gist of the film. Like that's his thing. Now going full on to the end, I actually thought the scene where they went back to 214 BC to the siege of Syracuse was actually done pretty well.
I hope you've muted this stream, No Green, because I thought we were going no spoilers, but
you said just don't spoil the 30 minutes.
No, it's all good. First 30 minutes.
I didn't say anything about the first 30 minutes.
I know that's what I'm saying. I don't care about anything but the first 30 minutes.
I have not said anything about that.
Okay.
I have the first 30 minutes are really cool. And actually, you could probably walk out of the theater if you did a matinee and get your ticket worth. That's my viewpoint of that. Like you could walk out and have your full ticket's worth if you just walked out before it got to 1969. Like I would have been okay with that. I think I spent $8 on my ticket. I would have been okay walking out in the first 30 minutes, but I wanted to, because he's never gonna play the character again,
right?
And this is his last thing, and at least it wasn't as bad. It's not as bad as everyone is saying. I think some of it is just hyperbole. It's not that bad. Yeah, did I get annoyed that Phoebe knocked him out? But in the story context, if the character was written better, that scene would have played fine. You know what I mean? Like if the story was written better, if she was directed better or told not to be so bratty or whatever, then that scene would have played fine. Unless at that point in time, he's shot in the chest for a while. He lost a lot of blood. I don't think he needed to be hit that hard to be knocked out. Like he's 80. But I mean, there was things I liked. So the Archimedes thing, and the fact that it complete. I don't know. Mads Mikkelsen did okay. He was not a bad guy enough, if that makes sense. Similar to Crystal Skull, I feel like the bad guys weren't bad guy enough. They were like bad guy light. I felt like for some reason in Raiders and Last Crusade, they felt more real. The villains felt more real. You got their sense. And the fact is, no one has matched up to Belloc yet. Even right. You just can't match up to him. And even in Last Crusade, I can't remember the name of the bad guy, but I remember Belloc. Like,
Right.
I don't even remember the name of the American bad guy that was trying to get the Grail. Like, I don't remember his name.
I can't think of it either.
See what I mean? But people remember Belloc because Belloc made an impression.
Right.
Like, so that's the thing that makes even, Temple of Doom. I don't remember the bad guy. All I know is Kali Ma. Like, that's it. That's all I remember from Temple of Doom in terms of the bad guys. I don't remember their names.
I think his was Molaram.
Molaram? Yeah.
I think that's what's in my head for him.
You got better than me then. But I'm just saying, like, the Indy villains, like, everyone remembers Indy so fondly, but the villains never really were the point that mattered. It was Indy.
Right.
It was Indy and the Relic, and that's the thing. Like, Belloc was the only one that, like, I think, and maybe it's just the name's easier to remember for some reason. Baroque. They sound Baroque. But Sala was awesome, and you end the movie with him singing the song "Salt in the Sea," with Indy and Marion back in the apartment together, patch things up. And it was a good ending. And then, like, Phoebe walks away, and I'll talk about Teddy, who is her short round. Not a good character. That's all I'm gonna say. Not a good character. He's a little pickpocket, and he's, like, I don't know, 12 with a mustache. They try to humanize her with him. They're both bad people. They're both bad people in this. She's a grave robber. She steals stuff from people. She sells it on a black market. So they tried to make her be like a Belloc type thing, but be like, this would be Indy if he had no morals or whatever it is. I don't know. I think that's part of the problem with that character. And if they did it, like, you could have casted someone as Sala's daughter, had the same type of storyline going on. Sala goes to him and says, "Oh, I need help. My daughter's in trouble." He's like, "All right, I got to do this again. Marion, I'm sorry." Sala, and she'll be like, "Oh, I know, Indy, it's fine." Blah blah blah, and they start the adventure. There you go. Not that hard. Like,
there
literally,
you go.
Like 5 minutes, you have a better story right there. And honestly, I don't want to say it's teased as the first MacGuffin, but, like, you take something so important as the fake as a MacGuffin, and then you put in something that 90% of people would not have no clue what it is. Like, that's the problem I have. You take the Archetheon, which, if you're a Greek history nerd, if you like Archimedes, okay, you know what that is. But otherwise, the first relic for the first 30 minutes, everyone knows. Like, not one person wouldn't know what it is. And I think they should have reversed it. Just saying. But I'm not going to spoil the first 30 minutes for No Green. I'm assuming this will actually be on Disney Plus soon. I don't think this is going to have a long shelf life on the theaters, which isn't going to be good for Disney. I think the reported budget, I think from what I saw in WDW Pro's video, is like $300 million, maybe. Like, that's, I don't know why it would be that much, unless it's just covering insurance for Indiana.
I think it was made with all the protocols that were in place, so that kind of bumped costs up. But the 300 million, I don't know if that's necessarily accurate.
I would say the 250 is probably more accurate.
Yeah.
I also think there are a lot of cool location shots, and I think, as much as James Mangold did a great job directing this. With what he was given, there are some great looking shots. It's not all volume. I don't know. I heard some people say this. They all look like it was in the volume. I'm like, maybe the one scuba scene, but there was a lot of practical scenes and set pieces. So I don't know. But like I said, I gave it a 4 out of 10. You saw my out of the theater reaction. I had some time to think about it. I also had the time to reminisce with everyone about the Indiana Jones Matters. We didn't get to talk about the Young Indiana Jones Adventures, but maybe we'll do that in a 90s stream coming forward, because this is kind of, Sunday will be the panel stream day, whether it be SOS or 90s stream. That's going to be going forward for the Sunday at this time frame. So I do want to thank Theme Park Casual. You have anything coming up? Plug, and you're a mon, so put your channel in.
I've got a reservation for Disneyland on Friday, and if work cooperates, I will be there Friday evening.
Okay.
For possibly parade and fireworks and stuff.
And No Green, you get your normal memer stream, and you have the Tuesday stream now, right?
Yeah, the Tuesday stream is for special occasions. I'm gonna most likely, if people can't make it to the Friday or Tuesday one, there will be special ones through the week for when the guests can make it, because I don't want to leave anybody out. So be sure to go to the Legion of Memers channel, hit that notification bell so you'll get all those notifications, or just follow us on Twitter, and we will be making posts and things like that. And also, if you make memes, feel free to hashtag and at the Legion on there so we can share and retweet. Thank you for having me on, Tom. It's always great hanging out with you. Same thing with Theme Park Casual. It's always great getting to hang out with you, mate.
And I'm sure me and Theme Park will work out another one of those. I have a wired headset for next time, so we'll have better communication. We'll work on one of those bi-coastal streams again. I think that was fun. It's nice seeing the differences going on. So we'll work on one of them. Once we get it ironed out, I think it'll be a cool thing to see, because Disneyland is so different than Magic Kingdom, like when you really look down to it.
Right.
So we'll look into doing more of those. But I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. I want to thank people for watching. I know it's a holiday weekend. I know this was my second stream today. I hope you guys enjoyed the beach. I think those are very therapeutic for me, because I don't have to deal with Disney people. I'm sorry. I don't know if Disneyland has the same entitlement level as Disney World, but like it has just been getting like worse lately. And sometimes you just need to like not see the mouse.
Yep.
But I will be at Epcot tomorrow, because there's some special fireworks for 4th of July, and Magic Kingdom for the 4th of July, which should be fun. I think Krista might be with me for part of that. But besides that, I want to thank you guys both, and I have an outro. And I didn't get to use half of my Indiana Jones clips I made. Like I had so many ready. I want
Indiana Jones.
Bro, you need a producer.
Yeah, I know. But
we didn't even get to any of the theme park stuff.
No, we didn't. We just caught the movies for a little bit. That's fine. That's okay. I honestly, it would have been just me jealous that you have the better ride. You have the much better thing. Did you get to see the Indiana Jones character actor out?
I have not yet. I was there on Friday when he was debuting, but I had a very tight schedule because I had some family commitments. So I was barely able to see the Rogers musical. I saw the first show of that, and then I had to bolt.
What do you think about the Rogers musical? I'm curious. How do you think it is at a Disney like stage show?
It's a quality show. It's very fun. I'm not a huge Avengers, fan. I'm not like way into it or anything like that. I do like Captain America. He is my favorite of the Avengers. So it was fun. But for me, I don't know how many times I would go back to see it. So okay. I think it may, depending if it ends up with a cult following, it's probably only going to run this summer, and then they'll put in a proper show, because it's nowhere near Frozen or Aladdin. With shows that were it prior to this one. And so I think it needs to be a little bit more grand. But we'll see.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I did watch some of your content on the show. I just still don't understand why the race swapped Hulk, but hey, I don't know.
Yeah, stuff like that. For me, it's with certain things like that, especially when it's a campy thing like this. It's like this.
I thought it was whatever. I thought it was meant on purpose to kind of be like Hamilton, because Hamilton purposely.
Yeah, it's definitely a campy show. There's a lot of, like winking at the audience kind of stuff and things like that. So it's like you kind of got to roll with it and just let it all, it's just a jumbled sort of kind of thing. And, again, it's a winking at the audience type of thing, especially, when you consider that it's built all around a 45-second little clip from another show.
Yeah.
You got to kind of give them a little bit of leeway to say, okay, go ahead and have some fun.
All right. Well, we're going to head out, and thank you all again. Enjoy your 4th of July holiday if you have off for it. Enjoy family, friends, all that fun stuff. And we will see you next time, I think next Sunday will be a 90s stream. I'll get it all set up, and we'll be alternating between 90s and stuff like that going forward. But I want to thank everyone, and bye for the last time, and here's the outro.